So I want to talk a little bit more about Trump's corruption and holding this piece of shit accountable. And by the way, I apologize if the wind makes this video difficult to hear. It's pretty windy out here this morning. Anyway, as you know, I do not want us to give up the fight to hold this criminal accountable to the fullest extent possible for those crimes that we can. Now, unfortunately, some of his crimes we'll never be able to pursue because of presidential immunity, that god-awful decision by the Supreme Court, and because the statute of limitations has run or will have run by the time we are ever able in a position to perhaps indict this criminal. But there are many crimes that I believe we can still go after him for. We're gonna have to wait until he's out of office to actually prosecute him, because there's no way the Supreme Court will ever let a sitting president, especially this one, be indicted and prosecuted. Of course, this federal government, this Justice Department, would never bring charges anyway, so it would have to come from a state to indict him now. But even if that were to happen, the Supreme Court would put the brakes on that until he's out of office. So we're gonna have to wait for that. That doesn't mean that we can't investigate now, and we should. Every official who takes their oath seriously and has the power to investigate this corrupt criminal should be doing so now, with an eye towards bringing charges against him as soon as possible. And even if something isn't criminal, his corruption should still be investigated. And that's one of the reasons why Trump is so desperately afraid of losing control of Congress in the midterm elections. That's why he's trying so desperately to rig the midterm elections. That's what the redistricting fight is about. That's why he's talking about wanting to end mail-in ballots and all the rest of it. And I think, I'm going to keep saying this because I think this is probably going to be his most effective way to rig the midterm elections, is to pick a few select blue areas, which makes it easier to do because Democratic voters tend to be clustered in urban areas, higher proportion anyway. And I think he will use his thugs from ICE, from various law enforcement agencies, maybe National Guard, maybe military, who knows what this psycho would be willing to do. Anyway, dispatch them to the streets of American cities in and around polling areas to attempt to intimidate people from coming to the polls. You don't have to prevent everyone from showing up. You just need to intimidate and scare away a certain small percentage of Democrats in key areas to suppress the vote enough to affect the outcome of the election. Anyway, what I want to get to here in this video is an example of the kind of investigation that the Trump administration and Trump himself will be bogged down by for the remaining 2 years of his presidency if Democrats win back control of at least one branch of Congress or one house of Congress. And there are so many things already 6 months in. I probably couldn't even name for you all the instances of apparent crime and corruption in which this orange criminal has engaged just since taking office in January. I couldn't even remember them all at this point. But one of them that I was talking about since the very beginning, since it was first announced, since we first learned about this lawsuit and the possibility that it might be settled. And that was when Trump sued CBS for the 60 Minutes interview of Kamala Harris during the campaign. He sued CBS for like $20 billion or something absurd. And no chance of winning, absolutely no chance of winning that lawsuit on the merits. But then we hear that Paramount, which owns CBS, was actually considering settling an absolutely frivolous lawsuit that they had absolutely no reason to settle. And then we learned that Paramount was had a merger with Skydance that needed approval of the federal government. And Sherry Redstone, who had the controlling interest in Paramount, really wanted that deal, wanted that merger. And it was obvious at that point what this settlement was about. I've been talking about it from the very beginning. It was obviously a bribe, dressed up as a legal settlement, bribing Trump to allow the merger to go through. And I explained that that's a crime. Just because you bribe him, if that's what happened, just because you bribe the president through the settlement of a lawsuit doesn't make it legal. Now, settling a lawsuit is legal, but if the purpose of the settlement is to bribe an elected official, that is illegal. It's illegal both by those who are paying the bribe and by he who is accepting the bribe. Both can be criminally prosecuted. And importantly, accepting bribes is not a crime for which he can be protected by the Supreme Court's presidential immunity decision. I mean, freaking bribery is one of the specifically enumerated crimes in the Constitution that someone could be impeached and removed from office from. Treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors is what it says. So bribery is specifically listed as something that should result in someone's impeachment and removal from office. So it can in no way be considered an official act of the president or a core constitutional function entitling him to any level of presidential immunity. And there's so many other crimes that are entirely personal in nature that he has apparently committed since January, just since becoming president, for which he could be convicted after he leaves office. Now, to that end, I was just scrolling through the news and I saw a headline, a linked article that said, Democrats investigating something about Trump or whatever. And I'm like, what's this about? Well, because I'm thinking, well, they don't have any, power, because House Democrats conduct investigation or something like that. And I'm thinking, well, they're not in the majority. They don't have the power to actually compel anything. So what's this about? Well, it turns out 2 Democrats, Jamie Raskin, who is fantastic, and I believe Frank Pallone, sent a letter to Paramount demanding the production of documents and information related to the merger with Skydance, leading up to it, what went into it, all of that. Now, they don't have the power to subpoena because they're not in the majority. And of course, Republicans will never go along with that. But they can, they can write letters and ask for this information. And, Paramount doesn't have to comply. But these are things that Democrats should be doing now. Again, they can't force compliance with these requests, but they can make the requests. And they can have their investigators look into this stuff and gather as much information as possible. And if they win control of the House and hopefully the Senate, which, by the way, the Senate's looking better and better. But anyway, if they win control at least one House of Congress in the midterms, they will have the power of subpoena. And then everything changes. And they really can conduct formal investigations at that point and put witness under oath. And that's important. And that's the kind of thing that Donald Trump is deathly afraid of. And when this, I just want to reiterate this fact because, you know, I posted a video. Well, I recorded a video, not exactly sure when I'm posting it. Don't know when I'll be able to, quite frankly, about Donald Trump fearing he's talking about wanting to get into heaven. What's that about? Did he get some bad medical news or something? You know, old man nearing the end of his life, obviously not the perfect specimen of health. I don't know. This is a man who seems to be a lot more worried about his future than at any point in time. Anyway, I talked in that video about how I don't want him to escape this life without having justice visited upon him in this life for at least some of his many crimes. And I think it is of the utmost importance. This man tried to overthrow the republic, and he has so far gotten away scot-free. That can't be allowed to stand. If this country, in my opinion, if we have any chance of like turning it around, this man has to face legal consequences to the fullest extent possible for what he's done. Anyway, my point is, I don't want him to escape this life without some legal accountability. And this is exactly the kind, because people say to me, oh, he can never be prosecuted, immunity. No, that is absolutely categorically not true. He can be prosecuted. And this is just one of the many examples of potential crimes for which he can be prosecuted. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. This is good news, and this is exactly the kind of thing that Democrats should do when they get back control of at least one House of Congress. Let's hope that happens. Anyway, I gotta run. Hope you all have a great day. Talk to you again soon.